This podcast is brought to you by Optimizer's Masterminds product. Watch the video at the end of the podcast for more details.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank J23 for the intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. My guest today is my good friend, Erica Berman. Erica's worked with some of the biggest names in business, from Jack Canfield to Brian Tracy, Dr. Mamina Torgano, and Erica Larkin, helping them generate millions in revenue with powerful marketing funnels. But what he loves most? Helping entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and creators unlock their full potential to take their success to the next level. He's also a best-selling author of Proximity Pays, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. It's my top recommended book at the moment. You may have seen some earlier social media clips promoting the book. So Eric, welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm honored that it's your top book. Wow, that meant a lot to me. I saw that post and it just really made my day. So thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You're welcome. I was actually thinking about this. Of all the books I've gifted to people, it's not top yet, but it's probably number 3. This is probably the number 3 book I've ever gifted to other people. So it's maybe I'll make its way up there. Eric, I always like to start the show, and you can take it as far back as you want. Just really like how you got started to where you're at today. You know, go back to childhood, go back to high school, those pivotal moments, whatever resonates for you. Just like take us back to like how did Eric Berman become the man he is today?
I'll try to do this quickly because there's a lot to unravel on that one. But grew up in Southern California, went to school at UC San Diego after college. Didn't do it, and I had a really good degree at a high school, but out of a high quality school. Didn't rush into the corporate world like almost my colleagues did, even though I was getting recruited with like I said, a good GPA there. And but what attracted me was the first conversation I had with somebody who said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm building this thing and this thing and that thing, and I have this big idea and this big vision." And I'm like, "Whoa, that sounds cool. Where do I sit?" And that was my foray, not realizing, without knowing. You don't realize you're an entrepreneur until you actually start entering the world and realizing the things in the things you do are very entrepreneurial. And me going on a journey of not taking the corporate job and saying, "Hey, let me go help you build this thing. Where do I go sit? Let's just get started. Sounds great." In hindsight, was something that I learned in reflection as an entrepreneurial. I mean, that led to a very, very crazy story because I'm 21 at the time here. And I worked a lot of things within there. I worked 18 months without a salary just to go all in and build something, AKA learning about sweat equity and stock and all this stuff. And we turned from 3-4 of us to 400 employees, raised $100 million. And we were the first social media company before there was MySpace and Facebook and all these other things. And I was almost retired at 28 years old, having run this huge business. And we were about to go public, 2 months from being public. And I was about, then I guess 8 months in theory from being retired. And then that was the first market crash of the year 2000. For any of the listeners who remember that far back, I am dating myself, yes, at 54 years old. That was the first crash and lost it all. Went from thinking I was done, and this is I was 20s, 7 days a week. And it's no joke, 7 days a week, easily 10, 12-hour days, sleeping in mattresses, that whole thing that you'd read about in those books. That was us, and lost it all. And says, how did you go through that? And I think for me, when I'm still young and hungry and going through all the wounds, I always tell people it's easier to lose money that was a piece of paper than actually have cash in the bank and have lost it. And I always just kept an optimistic attitude and a realistic attitude and said, well, me going around and groveling gets me nothing. People will listen to my story for 2 seconds, but my next act, I just have to nobody could take away the intellectual capital and what I learned along the way. And I'm just going to get up and get at it. Now, one more part of the story, which is interesting, that threads into where I got to the next step of my life, was that when I was 21, the person who started that company was a big fan of Tony Robbins and the main Brian Tracy, who you mentioned. And so we used to go at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 was Brian and Tony hour. And if you were late, you had to buy breakfast for the next day. So we locked ourselves from 6 to 7. And we used to feed our minds with Brian and Tony. And that's when I first learned personal development and all those skills that they don't teach in college, which is unfortunate. I wish they did teach you in high school, college back in the day. But I think that really helped ground me onto a lot of life skills that I'm blessed to have learned, and I'm still trying to always learn. And my next act after that was doing some consulting, and a family friend who introduced me to Brian. She knew I was in town, the same city, and she said, Brian needs help with this internet thing. He needs help with the web in 2021. And so I walked into Brian's office and said, Brian, I'm a huge fan. I was really excited. I was had to wipe the drool off my mouth because, this is a guy that mentored me. And I was like, oh my God, Brian, I'm like, I was so excited to have met him. And I essentially told him what he needed. And I said, Brian, I'll do this for you, but I gotta be honest, I'm not an employee. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'll build this for you. Don't pay me until I make you money. And he goes, Eric, you're my kind of guy. Let's go. So had that entrepreneurial mind going into that business. And here I am 25 plus years later, having started to work in the thought leader space with Brian, and that led to many others. So that's a very quick overview. And then we get into the mastermind, which I'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah. We'll come to that. Yeah. So a couple of questions that come from that. One that I didn't think would come up, but we're seeing, whether it be because of AI or otherwise, there's just, and there's always market cycles, but like we're seeing a lot of people getting laid off currently. It's getting harder and harder for young people to get jobs. Depends where we are in a market cycle. I remember when I graduated, we were where I live here in Alberta, Canada, we were in a downturn in the oil market. So it was very difficult to get jobs at that time. It's, market timing. What would be, a single piece of advice to maybe that about to graduate or just graduating, university, college kid who's like how to think about entrepreneurship as an avenue as opposed to like just getting that corporate job or what have
you? Well, I think, what's exciting is I think it's easier now to be an entrepreneur than it was ever before. So the tools, the ability, I've never been a technical guy, but shit, I could vibe code now, which is crazy. I could never thought I could do that. So like you have an idea, you have all the tools to go build something, but there's also a lot of competition, a lot of people doing that kind of stuff, and it's not easy. So I think, if you're going to go try something your own, try to find a group and partner with people, others to mentor that you can learn from, that you could teach, get yourself around, but figure out how you can serve others, or try to find somebody else that's got maybe a little bit more momentum, a bigger network that you can latch onto, that you can join in their idea and get that learning in. So maybe it's not your baby, but maybe you can find something that gets you excited and fired up, that sure, you may not be a full owner of your own thing, but you're going to learn a lot along the way if you put yourself in the right position to be with the right people that can help you grow and mentor you. That's not such a bad outcome either. And the same approach I teach now is really the foot in the door when it is harder to get jobs. It's hard to turn people away that are willing to put skin on the game and say, look, I'll do this and don't pay me if this happens. Like, you make it a difficult decision. Like, wait a second, I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to prove myself to you.
Right.
I would take that person over somebody else. And so I was able to, work 3 jobs in college to give myself a whopping like $30,000 in the bank leeway. So I had some time, and back in the day, I was living off of $1,500 a month, or like maybe $2,000-$3,000 a month, just making it through. But that helped. So those are just some quick ideas, and then is how I'd think about it from that side of things.
Yeah, speaking for myself and probably a lot of other people as well, I wish I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was like in my 20s, as opposed to, and my stories, I'm not going to rehash my story. The listeners have heard it before, but, mine was because of circumstance. But instead of doing that in my, late 30s,
Yep.
doing it in 20s would have been probably a lot better. Now you mentioned, that company 2000 crash. Would you say that's, the lessons you learned from that was like the biggest lessons, or was there some other struggle along the way where you learned a really important lesson? That's sort of,
there was so many lessons in running that company. I ultimately was sort of a COO type role, and I kind of was, along the way, I inserted myself in every department, having built and run things and do it. So there's just a lot of lessons in running business, life lessons, how to pick yourself back up when poo-poo hit the fan. But it was always just continue to have lessons even beyond that. I wasn't solely the number one person in charge. I was like sort of the right arm of the other visionary. So I got a chance, as I mentioned earlier, to really ride in the shadows and learn a lot while I was younger. And then that gave me the confidence to go do something myself after that. And then there's all sorts of learns in the next chapter of my life, running the agency and doing all the things there. And then there's lots of stuff you're learning as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I want to shift course. You talked about kind of what you're currently doing now with the mastermind. You teased it, and I think probably bringing up the book again is probably a good way as an entry into that. So again, I want to just focus on the again, congratulations, best-selling author status for
Thank you.
Proximity Pays. Maybe let's start with what before we get into like what's in the book, what are the lessons? Because I have certainly some things that I want to talk about that. But maybe and actually, let me say this first. I have publicly said this. This is the book I wish I had 2 years ago. Would have saved me
Nice.
a lot of time for sure. Maybe some money too, but definitely time.
Yeah.
So let's start with what led you to write Proximity Pays. Like what was that process?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ironic thing, I wasn't necessarily looking to write a book per se. Like in the back of your mind, I think most of us, at least entrepreneurs and others, think there's a book in us. But then there's the anchor and the weight of what goes into the book to do it right and put your name behind it and the time and the energy. And I was fortunate in that one of my members of my mastermind has an actual book writing workshop. And I know he's extremely smart. I trust him like a brother, and he's a genius marketer. And he really offered me the opportunity to come in under his wing to get kind of the VVIP treatment, if you will, to do this. And it was one of those, all right, if I'm ever going to do that, knowing that A, he's going to help me and he understands my product and my community, that there's going to be no better opportunity, in my opinion, at least the time, to actually get a book done. We're doing it for the right reasons with somebody who understands me and understands my end game and my objective, who can help me along the way. So I'm like, all right, just got to do this because, and then I think there was also a little bit of confidence and imposter syndrome about, well, does anybody really care what I have to say? What is it like? Or like, here's another thing I've learned in hindsight. Stuff that sometimes we're really good at, we might think is easy, and others don't see that as easy. Like these are just concepts that are like, well, doesn't everybody understand this? Is that really something that people would learn from these concepts? And I questioned that the entire time. And then like I think it requires somebody like a Travis who was my guide through this to say, no, Eric, this stuff but most people don't understand. It's really good. So I think getting that confidence built up on that there would be value out there for the time I was putting into it, plus all the other things I mentioned, is really what inspired me to say, all right, let's go get this thing done. So
Yeah, Travis, great fellow. Obviously I know him as well. One of the concepts, if you will, in the book, and I think this kind of resonates to our whole conversation thus far, and will resonate with the listener, is this term you've coined, isolation tax. So can you maybe like explain that and what you mean by that, and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. This is something that evolved in my mind the last 2-3 years. And I've heard the phrase entrepreneurial loneliness, and it's lonely being an entrepreneur. And it didn't stick with me initially. I didn't really understand what that meant because I'm an extroverted person by nature, and I had communities, and I was always naturally in communities and groups. So I didn't really feel that lonely. But as I started talking to more people, what I realized is that I was in a rare position where I did a lot of things that I happen to talk about in my book. So I was less lonely than the average entrepreneur. And what I meant by that is most entrepreneurs aren't lonely per se. They don't have people around them in their orbit, but they don't have the right type of people that they could talk to at a high level, at an entrepreneurial level. Therefore, they're under a lot of stress making decisions every day. And it's lonely because they don't have a lot of people they could talk to that can understand, that they can relate to. Yes, they may have an amazing spouse that supports them in everything they do, but how much can you really, really go into the weeds and talking about your business unless they're in the business with you? How about your employees? The same thing. So therefore, you're often isolated as an entrepreneur with nowhere really to go other than maybe like picking up a book or doing this or doing that, to try to get information. And therefore, you're making these decisions all the time in isolation. So the isolation tax that I talk about in the book is, what is the cost? How much money are you losing and the tax you're paying by putting yourself in isolation, by not getting out there and surrounding yourself with others that generally want to help you, that want to lift you up and collaborate with you. And it will be that sounding board, that personal board of advisors that will help solve that tough problem because they've been there before, or will help give you the confidence to do that thing because they've been there before. Or one of my favorite things, your best friends are the people that'll call your shit out on you and that'll look at your blind spots and tell you the things you don't want to hear, because that's how we grow. And so you're spending a lot of money, you're paying a big cost of being isolated. And that's what I talk about in isolation tax.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that resonates with people all across even to some degree, like even very senior corporate people, like who do they have a peer network?
Right.
And there's obviously peer networks out there. I'll just say this as a quick aside. I've shared this before. It was me. I won't mention their name, but someone we both know. It was me going to their mastermind 3 times in like a 4-month period that like actually changed my business. Not
Wow.
only what I was doing, but also the trajectory of it. So I'm huge proponent of masterminds, and that's just one aspect of like how we can have a peer-to-peer network. But I want you to explain like maybe the mastermind concept in total, and then like your masterminds that you belong to. But before you do that, I just want to say I am surprised when I talk to people, very high level performers, corporate entrepreneurs, you name it, and they actually don't know what this concept is. And I'm the first one bringing it to them. I'm like, whoa, 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 this is like new to me. Like I've only known about masterminds for like 4 years maybe. Um,
Yeah.
and yes, I've heard the term, I've read the books, I read the Brian Tracy books, et cetera, et cetera. It was kind of lost. It didn't really register. It wasn't until I first experienced one, again, 3-4 years ago, that it really resonated.
Yep.
Now, like I'm such a believer, I run my own mastermind, but I'm surprised at how many high level, very successful people have no idea what a mastermind is. So I'd love for you, for the audience who doesn't know, just maybe high level what it is, and then tell us about yours.
Yeah, I mean that's really the first part of the book. If you think of it in 3 parts, is one is the importance of finding a community, a mastermind, anything to get out of the isolation tax that you're paying. And really, a mastermind, there could be so many different flavors, but what is it you're feeling like you're missing, and who can you surround yourself with that's going to help you grow and collaborate and lift you up and give you energy? It's that feeling of I can't wait to be around this group, because if every time I'm around them, I'm feeling inspired, because the group around me is a good mastermind. Is you're learning, you're growing, you have people around you, like I mentioned, that will be there to advise you, that will collaborate, that'll open up doors. Having that, when I talk through it, it's like, if you don't have that, again, think about all the things you're missing out. It's just such a blind spot in your business. Like, you're doing this on your own when you don't have to. You think now more than ever, on what's going on in the tech world with AI, the amount of information that's flying around, just having a group around you that you could share with, that you could share, here's my success, what are you doing, how are you using AI in your business? Well, wouldn't it be nice to have a group of people that you trust that can share their big wins that's happening so fast? That's an example of having that mastermind. Or I'm actually really stuck, I just lost money 3 consecutive months in a row, I need help, where am I going to go? Like, can I go to a group that's going to say, well, Eric, you're missing this, this, and this, and have you tried this and that? Or let me pick up the phone and connect you with this person who maybe can partner up with you. And that's the magic of having the groups around you that can help out and being in the right kind of rooms.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you brought that sort of that real, not, I don't want to use the word negative, but that real vulnerable piece, because it's all great with like, hey, I'm doing awesome, and this is that, and I learned this, and I'm growing. But it's like that other side when it's like when we're
Yeah,
struggling, and we have
that's right.
those peers that we trust to help us, to help lift us up. That's even the more important piece.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
think
those are
for
my
sure.
favorite moments. I mean, and I won't name names. I've had some of the biggest names out there running these rooms, and they're like almost in tears, and they're just like, I've never had this kind of ask before. Like, and you're like surprised to see this person asking for help. I've seen people cry before. Like, I've never had a group that I can actually go to. I feel like I'm being heard. I feel like somebody actually cares about me and can resonate with what's going through my mind. I've never had that before. And so that's a lot of what we're solving in when you get in the right masterminds. And again, it's got to be the right one. And one of the things I encourage a lot in the book a little bit is um, almost like hiring people for the first time. Sometimes you might get it wrong. It might take you 2 or 3 to find the lane, but go with your gut. Go with the concept of, does it feel right? Am I feeling repelled? Am I feeling obligated to go to this group if it's a in person or if it's a Zoom group or whatever you're doing? Um, are you feeling your energy being sucked out of you, or is it like, I can't wait and I'm looking forward to doing it? These are big cues. And I know sometimes we tend to, especially the entrepreneurial ego, wants to like never admit they're wrong sometimes. And sometimes you're saying, well, I already invested 3 times and 3 hours in this meeting. I'll just keep going. I'll just keep going and keep going. And next thing you know, it's 12 months later and you're drained. And I'm like, what the hell did I do that for? I'm never doing this again. And then you give up. And it's like, well, there's probably another one out there for you. You just got to find the right one.
Yeah, and I'm not going to call it any groups, and they're not masterminds, but there's obviously groups out there that have meetings weekly, and the intent is to transact business and et cetera, et cetera. And they seem very transactional. And, I've been to those, and never a member, but I've attended many, many times as like a guest or popped in. Sometimes if I'm in the city, I'll just like, got some spare time, I'll just pop into like one of these type of meetings. And they always they never just really gelled with me. Just, again, I'll just use the word transactional. So again, to your point, and what's mentioned in the book is like, you have to find the right room that resonates with you.
That's right.
I love you to maybe just speak. We don't want to make this a commercial for the Speakeasy, but maybe just high level. I mean, that's how we met. Tell us about the Speakeasy Mastermind.
Yeah, so Speakeasy is we're bringing in, curating entrepreneurs that I like to say are a little bit more of the roll up your sleeves, hungry, big-hearted entrepreneurs that are still grinding, growing their businesses. They are not startup, and they're also not like so far advanced, having built mega companies that they like are 3 layers delegated deep. They're still hungry. They want to learn. They want to grow. They want to share. So that's the who of what we're comprised of, and really the core of what we built, which I feel is in talking to members, is just the localization of chapters that we have is the real core of our mastermind. And I took this, and I'll give credit to EO. I've been a member of an entrepreneur organization, which is another group I've been a part of, which is my favorite part, is the localization of bringing together other entrepreneurs in person for a monthly gathering to go through a format that we do, which is a lot of masterminding and sharing and building up our businesses and collaborating and all that kind of stuff. So it's that in person really is the crux of it, is getting people to collaborate together, to become friends, to become family, to share, grow together, learn together. And then outside of your city chapter, we allow our members to travel to other chapters. We have notes exchange from city to city. And we have an online community, an online hub where everybody gets to collaborate together. We have monthly speakers, we have referral parties, we have all sorts of things to do more than just, yes, there's a lot of stuff that goes on locally within each group, but we also want to collaborate globally where you truly have a home and everybody's got that same culture and vibe where it's just like, hey, you're part of this community. What can I do to help you? Yeah, absolutely. Let's collaborate, let's share, let's protect each other, that kind of thing. So that's a little bit about what we do, and I always encourage people, if you're looking for a room and you're an entrepreneur, come check us out. It might be a fit for you, might not be, that kind of.
Yeah, good point. I'll just say it for the local chapter where I live. I don't miss that monthly meeting. It's one of my highlights of the month is going to that meeting and just meeting my fellow entrepreneurs, and whatever the agendas, doesn't really matter. Actually, our most recent one, I spoke and I presented. Nice. I've been on the hot seat before, or I'm just supporting the other. So I love it. It's a highlight of my month.
And think about the relationships now you have with these people. I mean, these are people that you could pick up the phone and speed dial if you had a core issue, and they're going to come to your rescue. And that didn't necessarily happen. You wouldn't have that 2 years ago without this group.
Exactly.
And there's a confidence. There's a confidence just knowing. I always think about it. Like I always go through my mind of like, oh, when shit hits the fan or something goes down, just knowing I have that group that will always be there to support me when I need them and I'm desperate, and God forbid something happens on the health side or, anything. If I have something on the health side, I got you I can call. Like, there's just so many people, and I didn't know you, a year ago. So it's just having that ability to know you're not alone, and you have the people around you that will really drop the phone in an instant and come drive to you or do whatever they can to help whatever you're at. That's magic.
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure this happens in all chapters. You just sparked this idea. In our local chapter, we've had things come up where we can even support our other members, like kids initiatives. And we're all like, yeah, this sounds great. Like, we want to help. So, and we're like, supporting a charity or something that's, for their kids or their school or what have you, type of thing. So yeah, the community's a bit amazing. I want to take a little bit of a left turn here as we kind of slowly wind up here. So again, as you know, Eric, and most of the listeners know, like, I'm about health. That's what I talk about in my business. But the podcast is not about health. But I do like to ask most of my guests, what does their health routine or their morning routine look like, or what's a non-negotiable when it comes to your health? I know you live in San Diego. You mentioned that, probably one of the healthiest places in the U.S. So what does your morning or health routine look like?
For me, I'd say it's thanks to this world of I'm so excited about the future of functional health. By the way, I gotta say, the more I learn, the more I'm excited. And it's funny because I theoretically have watched the evolution of what's happened in the old world I mean, I don't want to get too political in the way things have been and the way things are progressing, but I'm just so excited. I feel like people's eyes are opening up to things, the amazing work you do and the amazing work that others are doing to really get more personalized, more functional. Just this is just so cool. So I think for me, what for sure is my supplement stack, which I've done it 2 or 3 times where I've taken blood work and I've gotten the results of that and said, oh my gosh, well, I'm deficient on this, and this, and I need in my antioxidants, I actually don't respond to this, but I respond to this kind of stuff. So I literally have like my 15 or so supplements every morning, a couple at nighttime. I've always been, so that is something that's non-negotiable. I do all the time. As best, I'd say it's as hard as negotiate as morning exercise. If I'm not going to get it done in the morning, it ain't going to happen. So I try to get, I really push to for at least 4 or 5 days a week of getting 30 minutes in some kind of exercise. Thank God, I'll give a shout out to Peloton and Tonal. I love my Tonal machine if I can get in there. Hard with the kids, but I like that one. For somebody who is at home and doesn't have time to get to the gym, at least that's my excuse. I like to have my in-home stuff. And then sleep. Sleep's big for me. It always has been. I look back at my life and I feel like I've learned about it since, but I hear so many stories about if you don't get your enough sleep, how much it affects. I am very fortunate in talking to a lot of others that I am like, boom, snapping my fingers, I'm asleep in 5 minutes or less. No matter what it is, I can go right now off this call and be asleep in 3 minutes. Like, so I just have that knack and my body does well with that. So that's kind of a non-negotiable. I got to get my rest. If I have low sleep, I'll make sure I get a 20-minute power nap in the next day to try to make up for it. And that's been really helpful on that stuff. So I'd say those are my non-negotiables there.
Love it. Okay, I need to ask you a question about your napping and sleeping. So
Yeah.
your kids are a little bit younger than mine. Beautiful family
Yeah.
you have. Do they wake you up? Do they not let you sleep, or you got them regimented pretty good with their sleep too?
It depends on week it is and month. Right? I mean, a 5 and a 3-year-old. So yeah, no, I mean, they'll try to let me sleep, but not really. I mean, when they're up, they're getting in there, but they crawl in bed and they kind of be quiet if they need to. One's still in his crib. So he's my wife and I will take turns and kind of handle that, and we'll try to make up for it when we can. So yeah, it's fun. And then nap, I used to teach how to do the art of a nap back in the first company, how to do the perfect 20-minute power nap. So that I used to love too when I was doing 12-hour days at the office.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you kind of need that, especially if work or whatever the circumstances throws you off your natural circadian rhythm, then you gotta throw that nap in there.
Yeah.
For sure. Let me ask you this question. It could be health related or not. It could be business related, but what is something that you wish you would have started earlier? Or another way to phrase the question is like, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, like what would you tell them?
Yeah. So I think for me on the business side, it's taken me all the way up to like really until I started Speakeasy for me to play. I always say to play in the sandbox that I was supposed to be playing in. Really getting to understand your skill set and what you love to do versus being in the work because you're there and doing the job because you happen to be in something. I happen to find myself in backing into, let's say, an agency, and I was doing well enough monetarily to be happy, but also complacent, where it wasn't like making tons. And depends how everybody values what's your own personal scorecard and what is it, monetary or happiness and all these different things. And, I was a little bit of both, but I wasn't, I think I was capped at what I was doing, and I was never really passionate about the work I was doing from where my skill set was. I like that the work I was doing, like working with people like Brian Tracy and Jack Canfield and others, are making an impact by me getting their messages out there. So that was great. But my skill set in there was decent. But ultimately, I found in hindsight, I'm a community builder, and I've always have been. And when I've reflected on that as I started going down this journey, I'm now happier in that. So looking back at myself, it's how can I really learn the genius of what I like to do in my business, in my life, and try to find jobs, work, opportunities that fit my genius, which allows me to work in flow and being happier. And that's tough to do sometimes when you're stuck into something that's making you decent money. But how do you ultimately find that is really what I wish I did. And the great Roland Frazier, I'll never forget a quote he said to me once, and he knows me pretty well. He goes, Eric, and I talked to him about all the things he had to do, and he knew my skill set. He goes, Eric, dude, you've been climbing the wrong ladder. Like, you have such potential, but you literally been playing over here. And called climbing the wrong ladder or playing in the
Right.
wrong box. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. If I look back at my career.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to wrap us up with her one last question. But before I do that, I just want to make the audience know we'll have a link to where you can find Eric, learn more about the Speakeasy Mastermind if it's right for you. And it's not right for everyone. That's totally fine too. Or you'll maybe find your own community. So we'll have all the links in the show notes there. Eric, you can take this question anywhere you want. It could be someone who's, maybe starting a second act, maybe they're midway in their journey, corporate or entrepreneur, or maybe there's someone, again, they're just graduating, or maybe they're even in high school. What's, a last words of wisdom or golden nugget, if you will, that you like to leave for the audience?
My favorite. You're leading to that one. So it's I don't know if I think it's chapter 7 of the book. So I am a relentless, and I've learned. And it's so strange to me because, again, I've been good at it. And I didn't realize that most people are not good at it. And I hate to call you out if you're listening to this. Most entrepreneurs absolutely suck at it. And I call it the follow through gene and the follow up gene. And everybody, like even right now, if I'm going to teach my little kids, it's like if you could be relentless and great at follow through and follow up, I feel like you can get miles ahead of others that your peer group. And it seems so simple, but it's absolutely astonishing people playing at a high level how crappy their follow-up is. And whether it's just they don't have their own systems, and if you're not good at it and you're not the organized person, then I'd say you're still responsible. Go find somebody to help you with that. Use AI. Go hire somebody to do that. If you know it's a shortcoming, be honest with yourself and say, I absolutely suck at follow-through. Great. But you need to figure out how to follow through. So get it together. And I share this story that I shared on stage a couple of times, which is, and I'll maybe just leave you with the story. And I want everybody to think, close your eyes and think about when you went to an event or you went somewhere and you met somebody for the first time and you talk to them, they say, oh, I have something for you. Actually, I'm going to make that intro for you. I know somebody, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, really? And next day or that night, they actually did. And they opened up a door for you. Think about how you felt and how you felt about that person. You're like, wow, what a great person. And you almost want to do something for that person. You certainly would if you saw him again. Now, think about you and the last time you promised something to somebody, or you said you're going to do something and you failed to do that. Think about the feeling that person has of you right now. It's probably not great. Like, are you somebody that they could rely on potentially? Are they somebody that you're going to go to bat for? Ouch. So I just throw that out to you and ask you, if you're listening, which person are you and how do you get to the person that everybody wants to reciprocate, because you're out there finding value first for somebody else, doing the things you're going to say you do, and follow up. And then the last point on this is I've talked to a lot of people where it's just like, well, I tried once and they didn't respond. Therefore, maybe they're not just interested or they're busy. And my answer is the same thing. How often do you get text messages, emails, all that, and you mean to get to them, but you're busy at that very moment and you just forget to go back to it? Don't be afraid to follow through a couple times. Close the loop out there. People appreciate that. So sorry to get on my follow through horse, but it's
No, I love it. And I'll just, so that last point, that happens to me all the time where I reach out and they're like, oh, I just got buried and whatever, and then they come through, that second or that third time. And then also I'll just say this for myself, and I'm one of those people. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to improve myself, but I'm terrible with not necessarily following through when I promise something to people, but even just you meet someone and maybe it's nothing really, but it's just, I'll call you, let's connect, or I'm going to connect with someone, whatever, or even on sales conversations, that follow through, it's a whole gamut of things. I was like, I have not been the best, and I've known this about myself for over a year now, and I've been trying to improve that in the systems, as you mentioned. And then when I read that in chapter 7 in the book, I was like, punch in the face. Yeah, Deepak, you need to up your game here for sure. So I'm glad you brought that up again. Another reminder for us. So cool. Again, everyone, we'll put the link to find all of Eric's information. Link for the Speakeasy to check it out. The Amazon link or whatever, wherever you buy your books for Proximity Pays. Check it out. Again, like I said earlier at the top of the show, the book I wish I had read 2 years ago.
Wow.
Don't forget to check out. Oh, you're more than welcome. Also, don't forget to check out our show sponsor. We'll have the link there in the show notes. And I'm going to throw it back to J23, who's going to guide us out with some music. Eric, thank you again for being on the Deepak Sandy Show.
Wow, it was an honor. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Oh, the honor was all mine, my friend. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. And remember, exceptional results for the exceptional you. Until next time. Today's podcast sponsor is Bioptimizers, particularly their Masterminds product here. I use this every time I have a protein-rich meal or a dairy-rich meal. It's a digestive enzyme product that helps break down proteins from meat, and eggs, etc. You're having that big steak, and also dairy products. You're having the cheese, etc. So I'm very sensitive to these dairy products, particularly some of the enzymes in that. So it helps me break it down so my body can actually use it, and helps break down that yummy steak or ribs or chicken or whatever I'm having, so I can actually use the amino acids from that and help digest that food. So Bioptimizers has like 80 products in their line. I'm just talking about one here, Masterminds. There's Gluten Guardian, which I've talked about before if you're sensitive to gluten. They have nootropics, and they also have my favorite brand of Magnesium Breakthrough, that has all 7 forms of magnesium. And I'll talk about that another time. But Masterminds, if you eat meat and you want to get more from your meat, make sure you're digesting it properly and actually get the benefits you want, get those amino acids, then you definitely want to check out Masterminds.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company